The Galactic Council chamber was vast, a hall of shining stone and glass that stretched so high the ceiling was hidden in shadows. Hundreds of alien delegates filled the curved rows of seats, their voices echoing in countless languages as they argued, laughed, and mocked. At the center stood the humans, silent, their dark suits neat and their faces unreadable. The council had gathered for serious discussion, matters of fleets, resources, and survival. Yet somehow, the conversation had drifted to human stories. It began with one alien lord, tall and insect-like, who raised his claws and spoke with sharp humor. Humans, he hissed, are obsessed with old tales. Myths of monsters, creatures of fire and wings. Dragons, they call them. His words sent ripples of amusement through the chamber. A reptilian delegate slammed his tail on the ground, laughing so hard the sound shook the floor. Wings, fire, and scales? Beasts bigger than ships? You humans carry childish fantasies. Another voice joined, higher pitched, full of scorn. How can a species that still clings to fairy tales hope to rule the stars? The laughter grew, spreading through the council. Some pounded their tables, others whistled or clicked, their amusement filling the chamber like a storm. They laughed not at the idea of dragons alone, but at humanity itself, weak, small, primitive in their eyes. But through all of this, the humans did not laugh. They did not speak. Their faces remained calm, their eyes still, like stone masks. That silence unsettled a few. For every alien who laughed, another one frowned, sensing something strange. Humanity had been in the council for years now, and though mocked often, they rarely showed such quiet patience. The lead alien, a massive warlord with skin like metal, leaned forward and sneered. "Tell us, humans," he growled, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall, "did dragons ever exist? Or are you still lost in your bedtime tales?" His words were meant to humiliate. He expected excuses or anger. But the humans simply exchanged glances. Finally, their ambassador, a woman with silver hair and a sharp gaze, stepped forward. Her voice was calm, too calm, when she spoke. "Some myths," she said softly, "are not myths. Some are memories." The laughter faltered. The chamber grew quieter, though a few still chuckled. One alien leaned to another, muttering in disbelief. "Memories? What nonsense!" Yet the humans did not elaborate. They stood silently, letting the weight of their words hang in the air like a blade. The insectoid lord clicked his mandibles, annoyed. "You mean to frighten us with stories of old? There are no beasts in the void but the fleets we command. If such monsters ever existed, where are they now?" Again, the humans did not answer. Their silence was heavier than any argument. The council tried to laugh again, but the sound was thinner now, forced. In the shadows of the chamber, a small alien scholar whispered to her companion, "What if they are not lying? What if Earth hides more than ships and soldiers?" Her words were ignored, drowned by the louder voices. Yet those who heard felt a chill. For in that silence, in those calm human eyes, there was no denial. There was only patience, like a hunter waiting. The meeting continued, but the mood had shifted. Reports of trade, war, and territory passed through the chamber, yet the memory of that single sentence haunted the council. Some myths are memories. Hours later, when the chamber emptied, whispers spread like wildfire. Rumors crawled across the stars. Could it be true? Could Earth's old legends hold truth? Could the so-called dragons of human stories have been real once? And if they were real once, could they still exist now? Far above the chamber, in orbit around the council world, surveillance ships detected strange transmissions. They were encrypted, moving fast, bouncing from one relay to another, impossible to trace. And they came from the human embassy. Technicians tried to intercept but failed. All they could see was a single repeating symbol within the code, a shape with wings spread wide, fire in its chest, claws extended. To most, it meant nothing. But to those who had heard the laughter earlier, the message was unsettling. It was a dragon. Somewhere in the dark of space, a captain received the signal. His ship, old and silent, turned its nose toward Earth. The engines ignited, carrying the message back home. Humans had not lied. Humans had not laughed. They had only waited. In the council chamber, the warlord who had mocked humanity sat in his private quarters. He replayed the human ambassador's words over and over. Some myths are memories. He told himself it was nonsense, yet his claws would not stop trembling. That night, he dreamed of wings blacking out the stars, of fire sweeping across worlds, of shadows older than his empire. And when he woke, he did not laugh. He did not mock. He only stared into the dark, unsettled, asking himself the same question again and again. What if dragons ever did exist? The council world did not sleep. Even when its twin suns fell behind the horizon, the towers of the capital glowed with light, and its streets were alive with thousands of species. Yet on that night, whispers followed every corridor. Delegates who had laughed only hours ago now spoke in hushed tones, remembering the human ambassador's words. Some myths are memories. It had been spoken softly, yet it echoed louder than war drums. In the human embassy, the lights burned late. Behind sealed doors, men and women worked in silence, their screens filled with encrypted codes. They did not argue. They did not panic. They worked with precision, as though every step had been planned long before the council meeting. A young alien clerk, tasked with delivering routine reports, happened to pass by the embassy. His eyes caught strange movements through a high window, humans standing in formation, not speaking, their hands pressed to glowing consoles. He felt a sudden chill and turned away quickly, deciding not to report what he had seen. On the other side of the city, the insectoid lord who had mocked the humans still boasted loudly in a banquet hall. Surrounded by admirers, he clicked his mandibles and told the story again and again. They believe in fire-breathing beasts, he roared with laughter. Creatures with wings that darken the skies. My people hunt such fantasies in our children's games. His audience laughed, but not as loudly as before. Some forced their amusement, their eyes shifting nervously. For even as they laughed, they remembered the silence in the humans' eyes. That silence was not weakness. It had been something else, something heavier. Across the stars, in hidden bases and deep oceans, ancient machines stirred. Buried sensors blinked for the first time in centuries. Old cables hummed, carrying signals that had not moved since before humans built their first cities. The transmissions were quiet, almost invisible, but those who watched the skies carefully noticed. Small outposts near Earth sent back confused reports. Energy spikes detected in the southern polar region, one officer said into his recorder. Unnatural patterns in the ice. Movement beneath the ocean floor. His voice shook as he added, "This is not mechanical. It feels alive." The message was sent, then locked away by human command. No one outside Earth would ever read it. Back on the council world, the reptilian delegate who had mocked humanity found his ship surrounded by strange lights in the night. He thought it was a trick of the stars, until the lights began to form patterns. Long curves, sharp lines, the image of a creature with wings. He screamed at his guards, ordering them to fire, but the lights vanished as suddenly as they had come. His guards whispered to one another. None dared to say it aloud, but all of them knew what shape they had seen. A dragon. The next day, the council chamber was quieter than usual. Reports of the humans' strange transmissions had reached a few ears. The metal-skinned warlord stood and addressed the hall. The humans spread fear with silence, he growled. They hide their weakness behind old stories. If they are sending secret codes, we must demand answers. Yet when the humans entered, calm as always, no one demanded anything. The ambassador with silver hair walked with steady steps, her gaze sharp. She took her place and said nothing. The council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Finally, one brave delegate asked the question on all their minds. What did you mean? What memory do you speak of? For a long moment, the human said nothing. Then she smiled faintly and spoke only one sentence. The earth remembers what you have forgotten. The chamber froze. No one dared ask more. Some scoffed, others muttered in disbelief, but deep inside, fear grew. Because the humans had not denied. They had not explained. They had only promised. Outside the chamber, the encrypted signals grew stronger. Satellite stations across the system picked up faint roars hidden within static. At first, technicians thought it was a glitch. But when they slowed the recording, the sound was unmistakable. It was not machine noise. It was something alive. A roar that rolled like thunder across the stars. News spread in secret networks. Merchants whispered of strange shapes seen beneath Earth's polar seas. Smugglers swore they had seen great shadows flying through the upper clouds. No proof survived, only stories, but the fear spread faster than truth. On one distant world, children began drawing strange creatures in the sand, winged beasts they had never been taught about. Their elders asked where they learned such shapes. The children only shrugged. "We dreamed it," they said. And in their dreams, the dragons burned bright. That night, on the council world, the metal-skinned warlord received a private message. The screen glowed with human code. He tried to block it, but the code forced its way in. For a moment, the screen turned black. Then, slowly, a symbol appeared. A dragon's head, eyes blazing. Beneath it, words in clear galactic tongue appeared. "Do not laugh again." His guards found him trembling, his steel-like skin covered in cold sweat. He ordered the message erased, but the fear would not leave him. All across the galaxy, the laughter of the aliens began to fade. They had mocked the humans for their myths. But now those myths had teeth. Somewhere, something old had begun to wake. And the humans were not afraid. They were waiting. The winds howled across the endless white of Antarctica. The ice stretched farther than the eye could see, thick and ancient, untouched for millions of years. Beneath that frozen silence, however, machines hidden deep below the surface began to stir. They were not alien machines. They were not human inventions. They were older, older than empires, older than recorded history. For centuries they had slept in the dark, buried under mountains of ice, waiting for a signal that never came. Until now. The encrypted pulses sent from the human embassy reached their destination, piercing through layers of earth and frozen water like a whisper from the past. The machines woke. Their lights flickered in colors no human eye could fully understand. Their circuits were etched in materials unknown to science, glowing faintly as ancient power coursed through them. Sensors long silent began to hum. They scanned the ice, the oceans, the skies above. They found what they had been guarding for ages. The shape was enormous, its body curled into itself, encased in crystal and frost. At first it seemed lifeless, a skeleton of some forgotten beast. But then came the movement. A tremor passed through the ice shelf. Cracks shot outward like lightning, racing across miles of frozen desert. The sound was deep and low, like thunder trapped beneath the world. Seismographs in human bases exploded with alarms. Scientists stared at their screens, their faces pale. "Something is moving down there," one whispered, his voice shaking. "Something alive." The military was already aware. Their ships circled silently above the southern pole, weapons armed but hidden, as though they were not defending Earth but preparing for what was rising. Alien outposts at the edge of the system noticed the activity. Their sensors picked up the strange energy waves pulsing from Antarctica. They reported immediately to their home worlds. The messages spread fast. Within hours, rumors burned through the council halls. "The humans are hiding something beneath their ice," one delegate hissed. "A weapon. A secret fleet." But those who laughed at the idea of dragons grew quieter. The readings did not lie. Whatever was under the ice was alive, and its energy eclipsed the strongest warships. Back on Earth, the crack in the ice widened. A black shape pushed against the frozen ceiling. More cracks spread, and then, with a sound like the Earth itself splitting, a massive wing broke free. Shards of ice exploded into the air, glittering under the cold sun. The wing was covered in scales, black as obsidian, each one the size of a human shield. Steam hissed as heat radiated from the creature's body, melting the ice that had imprisoned it. The scientists watching from a hidden base fell silent. Words failed them. For generations, humanity had called them myths, legends, stories for children. Yet here it was. A dragon. Its massive head shifted slowly, the ice falling away to reveal burning eyes, eyes that glowed like molten gold. It opened its mouth slightly, and a deep rumble escaped, rolling across the frozen desert like a storm. The sound was more than a roar. It was a vibration, a language too old to be understood. Machines hidden across the Antarctic responded, pulsing in rhythm with the beast's voice. Ancient seals broke. Restraints melted away. The dragon rose higher, towering above the ice cliffs. Its scales caught the light, flashing dark blue and black like metal forged in stars. The humans in the base stood in awe, but not in fear. They had known this day would come. They had prepared for it. One commander whispered into his radio, "The Guardian has awakened." In orbit, alien ships detected the energy surge. Their systems crashed as the readings spiked beyond calculation. One officer shouted in panic, "No natural creature can hold this power." His superior snapped back, "Then it is not natural." Across the galaxy, panic began to spread. The council demanded answers, but no human offered any. The ambassador simply said, "It is awake now. You will see for yourselves." The dragon stretched its wings, each one vast enough to shadow entire valleys. The force of the movement shattered glaciers and sent waves roaring into the sea. It tilted its head toward the sky, its golden eyes burning brighter. Then it roared. The sound carried not just through air but through space itself, echoing into the void. Alien fleets orbiting distant worlds heard it through their comms, their systems shuddering as though struck by lightning. The roar was not only sound. It was a message. Those who heard it felt something inside them: fear, awe, submission. Entire crews dropped to their knees, trembling, unable to explain why. On the council world, technicians monitoring transmissions froze as the roar reached their instruments. Their screens cracked. Their ears bled. And through the static, a single word translated itself into their language. A word spoken not by humans but by the dragon itself. Awake. The insectoid lord who had laughed the loudest in the council chamber dropped his cup when he heard it. His mandibles clattered in fear. "It cannot be," he whispered. But it was. The dragon was no myth. It was no story. It was real, alive, and free. And it was looking toward the stars. The ice was gone. What had once been a frozen prison was now a shattered grave of stone and water, broken by the movement of something older than empires. The dragon stood upon the ruins of the Antarctic cliffs, its wings spread wide, its golden eyes burning with an inner fire that no storm could dim. The humans who watched from their hidden bases did not run. They did not scream. They only stood in silence, their hearts pounding as the creature lifted its head toward the sky. For centuries, the question had lingered in hushed whispers: did dragons ever exist? Now the answer towered before them, alive and breathing. The dragon inhaled deeply, its chest expanding like a mountain rising from the earth. The air grew heavy. The sea boiled at its feet. And then, with a force that shook the heavens, it released its first true roar. The sound tore through the air like a storm of fire and thunder. Mountains cracked under the weight of it. Glaciers split and fell into the ocean. Waves raced outward, drowning coastlines thousands of miles away. Birds fell from the sky. Machines collapsed. Human scientists shielded their ears but still felt blood dripping from them, their bones rattling as though struck by invisible hammers. Yet this roar was not just a cry of power. It was something more. It carried through the atmosphere, rising past the clouds, breaking through the veil of the planet, and into the black of space. Satellites orbiting Earth shuddered. Their signals twisted, their circuits fried as if a star had screamed into their hearts. Alien outposts far beyond the system heard it too. At first they thought it was interference, a distortion of signals. But then the sound repeated, louder, clearer, impossible to mistake. A voice of fire that spoke to all who could hear. Crews aboard ships clutched their heads, falling to their knees as the roar echoed through their comms. Translators struggled to break the sound into meaning, and when they finally succeeded, one word flashed across their screens again and again. Awake. In the council chamber across the stars, delegates froze as the message arrived. The sound shook the walls, cracked the glass, and rattled the bones of every living being within. The insectoid lord who had once mocked humanity dropped his staff. His laughter was gone. His voice trembled as he whispered, "It cannot be true." But the evidence was undeniable. The dragon had spoken. The galaxy had heard. Back on Earth, military commanders stood in bunkers deep underground, watching as screens lit up with data no human had ever seen. Energy levels surged beyond calculation. The dragon's roar carried a force that could bend machines and cripple fleets without firing a weapon. One commander whispered to another, "It's stronger than anything we imagined. Stronger than us." Yet the ambassador, watching from the council world, only smiled faintly. She had expected this. Humanity had not feared the laughter of the aliens, because they knew this day would come. The dragon turned its gaze toward the stars. Its eyes narrowed as though it saw beyond the limits of sight, piercing through void and distance. For a moment it was still, silent, listening. Then its wings moved. With a single beat, the ground shook. Snow and ice flew into the air. The pressure wave shattered distant cliffs. It lifted itself into the sky, climbing higher and higher until it pierced the clouds. Lightning sparked across the heavens as the dragon's massive form soared above the storm. From space, alien ships stationed near Earth panicked. Their scanners showed the impossible, a living creature releasing more power than an entire fleet. "Weapons ready," shouted one commander. But his crew hesitated. Fear clawed at their hearts. They had mocked the humans, laughed at their tales. Now the tale flew before them, alive and real. Some ships opened fire. Beams of light cut through the void, striking the dragon's body. But instead of piercing, the blasts bent and dissolved, swallowed by the creature's scales. The dragon turned its head slowly, its eyes glowing brighter. It opened its mouth again. Fire erupted. Not fire like that of a torch or engine, but fire older and purer, a stream of burning light that cut through space itself. The nearest alien ship was consumed in an instant, melted into nothingness. Others scattered, their captains screaming into comms, "Retreat! Retreat now!" But even retreat brought no safety. The roar followed them, shaking their ships apart from within. Circuits fried, weapons jammed, engines died. Entire crews wept in terror as they fled the beast. The galaxy, which once mocked, now trembled. In the halls of the council, silence reigned. No one laughed. No one dared to speak. They all knew what they had witnessed. Humanity's myths had risen, and they were not powerless fantasies. They were weapons beyond imagination. The ambassador rose from her seat. She looked at the gathered aliens, her silver hair catching the chamber's pale light. Her voice was calm, steady, and colder than the void. "You laughed," she said. "You mocked us. But now you understand. We did not invent our guardians. We remembered them." Across the stars, empires whispered in fear. Some prepared to send their fleets against Earth, desperate to destroy what they now understood was real. Others whispered of alliances, of kneeling before humanity before it was too late. But the dragon did not care. It did not roar for politics or power. It roared because it had awakened, because its long slumber had ended, because its eyes were open once more. And as it flew higher, past the last layers of cloud, past the edge of the sky, it turned its face toward the void. The stars reflected in its eyes. It spread its wings wide, casting a shadow upon the planet below. Then, with another roar that shook the heavens, it left the world of its birth and entered the endless sea of stars. The first roar had ended. But the galaxy's terror had only begun. The galaxy had fallen silent. News of the great roar, of the creature that shattered ice and burned ships with its breath, spread faster than light. Across stations, colonies, and fleets, every species whispered the same word in fear. Dragon. It was not a myth anymore. It was not a story for children. It was alive, it was powerful, and it belonged to Earth. The council chamber filled with tension heavier than any battle. Delegates shifted in their seats, their eyes darting toward the human ambassador. Just days before, they had laughed at her people. They had mocked the old stories. Now those laughs were gone, replaced by unease, by the trembling knowledge that they had mocked something real. The ambassador stood calm, her silver hair catching the pale glow of the chamber lights. Her voice carried clearly, every word deliberate. You asked us if dragons ever existed. You laughed. You mocked. Now you have heard the truth for yourselves. The roar was not illusion. It was not a trick. It was a guardian of Earth, and it has awakened. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some shouted disbelief, but their voices shook. Others demanded to know how such a creature could survive. But no one dared call her a liar. Not now. A reptilian delegate leaned forward, his scales shivering with unease. This guardian, he hissed. How long has it been hidden? How many are there? The ambassador's gaze turned to him, steady and cold. It has been with us longer than we have written history. And as for how many, she paused, letting the silence weigh on them all. That is not a question I will answer. The chamber grew restless. Some shouted accusations. Humans deceive. They unleash monsters into the galaxy. But others trembled, remembering the feeling that came with the roar. It had not only been sound. It had been language. Even machines had translated it into a word. Awake. An insectoid lord, once the loudest in his laughter, could no longer meet the ambassador's eyes. He whispered to his companion, "If this was only one, if this is only the beginning, then what else sleeps on Earth?" Meanwhile, fleets near Earth pulled back, afraid to come closer. Captains who had mocked the mission before now ordered full retreat, unwilling to face the fire again. They had seen ships turn to ash in a single breath. They had watched their weapons bend like twigs against scales that glowed like forged steel. They knew this was not a beast that could be caged or killed by simple force. In hidden bases, human commanders monitored the dragons rise into space. Their faces showed no fear. They had expected the awakening. They had planned for it. One officer reported calmly, "The Guardian responds to us. It does not see us as prey. It sees us as kin." Another added, "The aliens now understand. The days of laughter are finished." Deep in the council's private halls, panic spread like fire. Leaders argued over what to do. Some demanded that fleets be gathered, that Earth be struck before more of these beasts could awaken. Others begged for diplomacy, insisting that if humans controlled such power, war would mean extinction. The ambassador let them argue. She stood silently until the chamber demanded her words again. "Tell us," shouted a delegate with feathers bright and sharp. "Tell us why this creature exists. Tell us why you kept it hidden." Her answer came with no hesitation. "Because it was not time. Because guardians sleep until they are needed. And now they are needed." A hush followed. Guardians. The word sank into every mind. The dragon was not just a weapon. It was something older, something with purpose. It had not awakened for destruction alone. It had awakened because something was coming. Or perhaps something had already begun. Across the stars, the common people whispered of humanity with new fear. Some spoke of ancient legends, of stories that their own species had buried long ago. Were humans the only ones with sleeping myths? Or had they been the only ones who remembered? The dragon soared above Earth, its wings glowing faintly in the sunlight. Alien ships trailed at a distance, careful not to provoke it, their captains whispering prayers as they watched. They had never seen a living thing so vast, so powerful, so unstoppable. And in the council chamber, the laughter of days before had turned into trembling silence. The humans stood tall, their patience unbroken, their secrets only beginning to surface. The ambassador's voice cut the quiet once more. You asked us to prove ourselves. You asked if we were worthy to sit among you. You thought we were weak, bound by stories and childish dreams. But our stories were not lies. They were warnings. They were memories. And now you see why we never feared your fleets. She leaned forward slightly, her eyes sharp as blades. You are afraid. And you should be. No one argued. No one laughed. The myths of Earth had taken form, and they were made of fire, wings, and scales that no weapon could pierce. They were real. They were flesh. And the galaxy had no choice but to believe. The dragon rose higher, leaving the cold sky of Earth behind. Its wings cut through the thin layers of atmosphere, pushing against forces that crushed ships, but the beast moved as though the void itself obeyed it. Soon, it was no longer flying above clouds. It was in space, its body outlined against the black sea of stars. Alien fleets stationed in orbit tightened their formations. Their commanders barked orders, their voices filled with forced courage. For years they had fought wars, crushed rebellions, destroyed entire colonies, but none of those battles prepared them for what now faced them. Through their windows they saw a creature of legend moving like a shadow across the void, its scales glowing faintly, its golden eyes fixed on them. For a brief moment, silence ruled. No one fired. No one dared to move. Then one captain broke the stillness. Test it, he ordered, his voice trembling. If it bleeds, it can die. Weapons lit up the darkness. Beams of energy tore across the space between ship and beast. Missiles streaked forward, leaving trails of fire. Explosions bloomed around the dragon, bright against the black. For a heartbeat, crews cheered, believing the creature had been struck down. But when the fire cleared, their hope died. The dragon was untouched. The blasts had bent away from its scales, curving off as though the void itself protected the beast. The golden eyes narrowed, and for the first time, the alien fleets realized the danger of what they had done. The dragon opened its mouth. A glow formed deep within its chest, brighter and hotter with each passing second. The glow spread up its throat, until its mouth burned like the heart of a star. And then it exhaled. Fire erupted into the void. But it was not fire like any weapon they had seen. It was not plasma, not heat, not simple destruction. It was a storm of light and force, ancient and pure, a breath that ripped the very fabric of space. The nearest ship had no chance. In an instant, its metal frame dissolved, melted into glowing fragments before vanishing completely. The fire spread farther, a wave cutting across the battlefield. Entire formations were engulfed. Dozens of ships vanished, erased as though they had never existed. Their crews had no time to scream. Those who survived were thrown into chaos. Retreat, captains shouted. Fall back. But retreat was meaningless. The fire bent, chasing them, stretching across the stars like a living tide. Only when the dragon closed its mouth did the fire fade, leaving silence and drifting ash where fleets once stood. Panic spread. Across comm channels, voices broke into screams. Some begged for mercy. Others cursed the humans, calling them deceivers and liars. But none dared fire again. The dragon's roar followed, shaking every ship, every mind, every heart. It was not sound alone. It was felt inside the bones, inside the soul. Translators once again gave a single word. Leave. The survivors obeyed. Engines ignited, fleets scattered, and within moments the skies around Earth were clear. Only wreckage remained, glowing fragments drifting like dying stars. The dragon hovered among them, wings slowly folding, golden eyes unblinking. From deep beneath the planet, human commanders watched on their screens. They did not celebrate. They only observed. One officer reported, his voice steady. The Guardian has demonstrated its fire. The galaxy now understands. Another added, we must control the panic. If they believe Earth commands the beast fully, they will fear us more than they already do. The ambassador on the council world stood tall as reports poured in. Delegates shouted at her, their voices full of terror and rage. "You unleashed this. You brought fire into our skies." She raised her hand, and silence fell. Her voice was calm, sharper than steel. "We unleashed nothing. It was always here. You are the ones who forced it to rise." The chamber trembled with unease. Some shouted for war, but others remained silent, too shaken by what they had seen. For even the strongest empires among them knew their fleets would fall the same way, burned to ash before a breath of living fire. Whispers spread beyond the council halls. On distant colonies, common people began carving dragon shapes into stone, into walls, into the sand of their deserts. Some prayed to it, believing it was a god. Others cursed it, calling it the death of freedom. But all believed. None doubted anymore. The galaxy had mocked the humans. Now they feared them. In orbit, the dragon finally turned its gaze away from the wreckage. It did not chase the fleeing ships. It did not roar again. It looked down toward Earth, as if waiting for something. Then its wings spread once more, and it began to move, slow and deliberate, across the void. No one knew its destination. Some believed it would return to slumber. Others feared it was hunting. The truth was darker. It was listening. Deep within its ancient mind, the dragon felt something stirring across the stars. A pull, a call, a memory of an enemy it once knew. Humanity had awakened it, but perhaps not only humanity had the power to rouse such creatures. The dragon roared again, not in anger this time, but in warning. Across distant systems, other sensors flickered. Ruins trembled. Old stones cracked. And in the silence of forgotten worlds, something else began to stir. The fire in the void was not the end. It was only the beginning. The council chamber had never been so restless. Delegates from 100 species filled the great hall, their voices rising into shouts that echoed against the high walls. Screens still replayed the images of the dragon's fire in orbit, the way fleets had vanished as if the void itself had consumed them. Some delegates demanded punishment, others demanded war, but none could agree. Fear had cracked the unity they once claimed to hold. The human ambassador stood silently at the center, her eyes steady, her posture calm, as if the chaos around her was only noise. Finally, she raised her hand, and the hall fell quiet, not because they respected her but because they feared what she might say. Her voice was clear, every word measured. "You laughed at our legends. You mocked our history. Now you have seen the truth. The dragon is real. It has returned. And you know it cannot be defeated." A ripple of unease spread through the chamber. A tall delegate from the Torvith Empire leaned forward, his voice sharp. "You dare claim ownership over that creature? That fire was not yours. It was wild, uncontrollable. You humans are nothing more than witnesses to a force you cannot master." The ambassador did not flinch. "You are wrong. The dragon chose to awaken because you threatened us. It rose because it saw danger. And it did not burn your fleets by accident. It burned them because it decided you were enemies." Murmurs broke out. The ambassador let the silence stretch before speaking again. "So now you must ask yourselves, if the dragon sees you as enemies, how long will you survive?" Her words hung heavy in the air. Some delegates lowered their eyes. Others gritted their teeth in anger. But none could deny the truth. They had seen entire fleets vanish in seconds. The fire was not a weapon they could fight. It was a storm they could only run from. The ambassador took a step forward, her gaze sweeping the room. "We are offering you peace. We are offering you safety. Do not threaten Earth again. Do not invade our skies, our lands, or our seas. In return, the dragon will not rise against you. The choice is yours." For a long moment, the chamber was silent. Then voices erupted once more. Some shouted to accept the bargain. Others roared that no empire should kneel to humans. The council leader finally struck his staff, demanding order. His voice trembled when he spoke. And what if the beast decides otherwise? What if it wakes not for war but for hunger? What if tomorrow it devours us all, and you cannot stop it? The ambassador's lips curved in the faintest smile. Then perhaps you should pray the dragon sees wisdom in our guidance. For it listens. It understands. And for now, it trusts humanity. Those words spread like fire. Delegates whispered furiously, sending messages to their governments, their militaries, their people. Across the galaxy, rumors grew. Humanity had not only awakened the dragon. They had bargained with it. Some called it a lie, others called it proof of human arrogance, but all feared the possibility that it was true. Meanwhile, on Earth, the dragon remained in orbit, circling slowly as if watching the stars. Scientists monitored every movement, every flicker of energy that pulsed through its body. Commanders debated endlessly, unsure whether they should call it a weapon, a guardian, or a god. One general spoke firmly. If the galaxy believes we control it, then we hold power greater than any fleet. But if the dragon ever turns against us, humanity will be the first to burn. The Council of Humans agreed to keep the truth hidden. In reality, no chain held the dragon. No voice truly commanded it. It moved of its own will, ancient and unknowable. Yet, for reasons they could not explain, it had spared Earth. That was enough. But far away, in the depths of another system, shadows stirred. An old enemy, one buried in forgotten history, felt the dragon's fire across the stars. They too had once known such beasts. They too had once fought them. And they remembered the cost. Their leaders gathered in secret, their voices low and fearful. The dragons have awakened again. If one has risen, others may follow. We cannot let this spread. The cycle must be broken before it consumes us all. Orders were given. Fleets prepared in silence. Weapons older than most civilizations were unearthed. While the council argued and humanity bargained, another storm was rising unseen. Back on the council world, the ambassador returned to her private chamber. She looked at the messages flooding her screens, offers of alliance, threats of war, pleas for guidance. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "We have bought time, but nothing more." Outside, stars burned quietly, as though hiding secrets behind their light. The galaxy was not laughing anymore. It was holding its breath. And somewhere in the darkness, the dragon stretched its wings wider, sensing the approach of something it remembered all too well. The night on Earth was quiet, but in the hidden depths of space something ancient moved again. Far beyond the council worlds, in a forgotten sector where no common ships dared to travel, a fleet began to awaken. Their ships were not made of steel or crystal like the others of the galaxy. They were dark, jagged things, as if carved from the bones of dead worlds. They belonged to a species few remembered, for history had buried their name in silence. They were called the Zereth once, but most who had faced them did not live to tell the tale. Long ago, before the council had even risen, the Zereth had waged war against the dragons. They had not laughed at myths like the younger species. They had known the creatures were real, for they had fought them with fire and blood. Now, as their leaders sat in their chamber of shadows, they looked upon the images of the human dragon, its fire bright in the void, and fear returned to their cold hearts. "It has come back," one whispered, his voice broken like rust. "We ended the last one with the price of 1,000 worlds. And yet here it rises again, awake and bound to the humans." Another snarled, his claws scraping the table. "Not bound. Do not fool yourself. No one commands dragons. They are hunger wrapped in flame. They are ruin given wings. The humans will be the first to burn, and when the beast has fed, it will turn to us." But the eldest among them, his body frail and ancient, leaned forward. His eyes glowed with memory. "You are wrong. This is no accident. The humans have brought it forth. Perhaps they have found the old whispers, the old rites. Perhaps the creature has chosen them, as it once chose others. If the galaxy believes they control it, then they will rise faster than any empire before. And if they rise, we fall. Silence followed his words. The council of the Zereth knew what must be done. Plans long buried were opened again. Weapons of impossible power, built only for one purpose, were drawn from the vaults of dead moons. These were dragon killers, forged in the last war, the only things that had pierced the beast's scales. One by one, the ships lit their engines, preparing to move. While the council worlds argued, the Zereth prepared for war in silence. Back on Earth, humans did not yet know of this danger. They still stood before the galaxy, pretending control. Scientists whispered of the dragon's strange signals, pulses of energy that seemed almost like language. The creatures circled the planet not with hunger but with patience, as though waiting for something. Military leaders debated endlessly, some seeing it as their greatest weapon, others fearing it was a predator merely biding its time. One commander spoke with frustration. "We cannot keep lying forever. The council already doubts us. If the dragon acts on its own, and the galaxy sees we cannot stop it, then everything we built will collapse." But the ambassador who had faced the council shook her head. "They do not want the truth. They want to believe we have control, because if we do not, then no one is safe. Fear is stronger than truth." Yet even as she spoke those words, the dragon stirred. Its wings, vast as continents, stretched across the void. Its body shimmered with burning lines, as though old scars were glowing again. Deep in its chest, a low rumble spread across space, not heard with ears but felt in the bones of every living creature that watched the stars. Some on Earth felt awe, others felt terror. But far away, in their hidden fleet, the Zereth felt something different. They recognized it. The sound was not a warning, but a call. A call to war. The eldest Zereth rose slowly from his seat. "It remembers us," he said. "It remembers what we did. It will not wait. We must strike first, or we will be nothing more than ash in its fire." Their fleets began to move, silent shadows cutting through the dark. They sent no warnings, no messages, no threats. For them, this was not politics or pride. It was survival. They had killed dragons before, and they would kill again. But as their ships approached the outer edges of council space, their presence was felt. Watch stations vanished without alarms. Scouts disappeared into nothingness. Rumors spread faster than light. Some said a new empire was rising. Others said an old nightmare had returned. On Earth, analysts studied the losses and grew pale. The ambassador read the reports and felt her chest tighten. "Something is coming," she whispered. The dragon, as if hearing her words, tilted its head in orbit, its burning eyes fixed not on Earth but on the endless dark beyond. It too remembered. It too was waiting. Humanity thought it had awakened the beast for its own defense. But now it became clear, the dragon had risen because its old enemies had returned. And this time, the war would not be only for Earth. It would be for the galaxy itself. The first battle began without warning. In the far edges of space, where no trade ships passed and no colonies lived, the Zereth struck. Their fleet came like a shadow across the stars, hundreds of dark ships moving as one, their weapons already burning. They did not declare war. They did not send words. They only fired. The first council outpost was erased in seconds, its defenses torn apart like glass before storms. The alarms that were supposed to warn the galaxy never even had time to scream. When the council received the broken signals, it was already too late. By then, 3 stations had vanished, and the Zereth had left nothing behind but silence. Panic spread through the council worlds. They had laughed at humans, mocked their dragon, but now they faced something older and more dangerous than they had ever known. Many whispered the name Zereth, though most had thought them long extinct. The few historians who remembered grew pale, for they knew the stories. "If they have returned," one said in a trembling voice, "then the dragons must have awakened for the same reason. The war is not new. It is old. Older than us all." On Earth, humanity watched the reports in tense silence. Leaders gathered in war rooms, screens showing images of vanished outposts and strange dark ships. The ambassador spoke to the generals. The galaxy does not know what is happening. They will look to us now. They think our dragon can protect them. If it cannot, we will lose everything. The dragon itself seemed to sense what was coming. From its orbit above Earth, it shifted restlessly, its massive wings folding and spreading, casting shadows across the planet below. Its eyes burned with a light no human could fully understand, and when it opened its mouth, a low growl spread across the void. It was waiting for the enemy it had once known. The Zereth wasted no time. Their scouts moved closer to the solar system, testing, searching. They wanted to know if the humans truly controlled the dragon. Small ships slipped into the dark, cloaked in shadows, but the dragon saw them. Without warning, it moved. In a single sweep of its wings, it crossed the void, faster than any machine could follow. Its fire lit the black, a river of living flame that swallowed the scouts whole. They did not even have time to scream before they became dust. The galaxy saw this strike, for hundreds of eyes were watching. For the first time, the aliens who had laughed at human myths saw the dragon unleash its fury. Silence fell in every chamber of power. No one laughed anymore. But the Zereth were not afraid. They had seen this fire before. They had weapons for it. Their fleets moved closer, and their commanders spoke with grim certainty. The beast is awake. The humans are fools if they think it protects them. It will fall as the others fell. Prepare the spears. On their ships, vast weapons began to power up. These were not simple cannons or beams. These were ancient devices forged from the death of suns, designed only for one purpose, to pierce dragon flesh. Humanity had never seen such things, and even the Council could not have imagined them. But the dragon knew. As it circled Earth, its growls grew louder, its fire brighter. It remembered the pain of those spears, the burning light that had killed its kin. Yet it did not retreat. It did not fear. It had waited centuries for this moment. The first clash came at the edge of the solar system. A fleet of Zereth destroyers entered quietly, slipping past defenses, but the dragon was already there. With a roar that shook the void, it descended upon them, fire blazing like a star reborn. Ships exploded one after another, torn apart by flame and claws. The humans watched in awe, their satellites capturing every moment. For them, it was like watching a god fight. For the Zereth, it was only the beginning. They unleashed their spears. From the largest of their ships came a burst of light, sharp and endless. Not fire but pure energy compressed into a single shot. It struck the dragon in the chest, and for the first time the beast cried out. The sound echoed through space, a terrible roar of both rage and pain. Humanity trembled, for they saw the impossible. The dragon bleeding fire, its scales cracked, its body recoiling. Yet even wounded, it did not fall. Its wings beat once, and in fury it surged forward, tearing the spearship apart with its jaws. The explosion lit half the system, fragments burning like meteors. Still, the dragon did not stop. It ripped through the fleet, destroying ship after ship, until only silence remained. But its body showed the scars. Its fire burned dimmer, its wings carried wounds that glowed with strange light. The humans were torn between fear and pride. Their greatest weapon was not invincible. Their greatest shield was also mortal. The Council watched with even greater fear. Some began to beg humanity to release the dragon, to command it to protect them, but the humans remained silent. The truth was simple and terrifying: they did not command it. It acted on its own. And in the void, as the dragon licked its wounds, the Zereth prepared their next strike. They had lost ships, but they had seen the truth. The dragon could be hurt. It could be killed. And if they killed it, then nothing in the galaxy would stand in their way. On Earth, the ambassador whispered what no one wanted to hear. We thought we awoke a guardian. But what if we awoke a prisoner of war? What if it was never meant to protect us, but only to finish what it started long ago? The room went silent, for her words rang true. The fire in the void was not the end. It was only the first battle in a war older than history itself. The galaxy stood on the edge of silence. After the first great battle, the Zereth did not retreat. They regrouped, their fleets gathering in the dark like storm clouds before a final strike. Their commanders spoke with certainty. The beast bleeds. It can die. Once it falls, the humans will be nothing. The council will be nothing. The galaxy will be ours. On Earth, fear and hope mixed like fire and ice. People had seen the dragon wounded, but they had also seen its power. Whole fleets had burned in its flames, ships that no weapon of the council could have touched. Yet the dragon was not human. It was not bound to orders or commands. It fought because it chose to, not because it served. And so a question hung heavy over every world. When the last battle came, would the dragon fight for them, or only for itself? The dragon rested above Earth, its vast body curled like a mountain of fire and scale. Its wounds glowed faintly, light leaking from its flesh where the spears of the Zereth had struck. Yet its eyes still burned, fierce and alive, and its chest still rumbled with the growl of a storm waiting to break. The humans watched from orbit, their ships circling like tiny sparks beside a sun. One general whispered, "If it falls, we fall with it. If it wins, maybe we live." Across the stars, the Zereth came. Thousands of ships, more than the council had ever seen gathered in one place. Their weapons gleamed, ancient devices built only for one purpose, the death of dragons. The void trembled as they moved closer, and the humans felt the air grow thin even though they were safe behind walls of steel. Fear touched every heart. Then the dragon rose. It spread its wings wide, light pouring from its body like a star breaking free. Its roar rolled through the darkness, reaching every ship, every station, every world. To the humans, it was a promise. To the council, it was a warning. To the Zereth, it was a challenge. The final war had begun. Fire lit the void as the dragon struck first. With a sweep of its wings it surged forward, its flames spilling across the stars. Entire squadrons of Zereth ships were erased in a single breath, their metal shells melting into rivers of light. But the Zereth did not break. Their weapons fired as one, thousands of spears of energy stabbing through the dark, each one aimed at the beast's heart. The dragon twisted and roared, its scales shattering under the assault. Every strike left scars, every blast drew more fire from its wounds, yet it did not stop. It tore through their fleets, claws shredding cruisers, jaws crushing battleships, wings smashing destroyers into dust. The humans could only watch. They wanted to help, to fire their own weapons, but their ships were too small, their weapons too weak. This was not their war. It was a battle between monsters, one born of flame and one born of shadow. Still, they recorded every moment, knowing history itself was being written in fire. The battle raged for hours, neither side giving ground. But slowly, too slowly, the dragon began to falter. Its fire dimmed, its roars grew hoarse, its wings heavy with wounds. The Zereth pressed harder, their commanders shouting with triumph. "It falls. Strike it down. End it forever." Another spear struck, piercing the dragon's side. Another hit, cracking its jaw. The humans cried out in despair as the beast stumbled, its body drifting weakly, its fire only a flicker. The Zereth roared in victory, moving in for the kill. But then, something changed. Deep within the dragon, a glow began to spread. Not the glow of fire, not the heat of rage, but something greater. Its eyes blazed like suns, and the flicker of its breath became a storm. For the first time, the humans realized the truth. The dragon had never shown its full power. It had been holding back. Now, with death before it, it unleashed everything. The void burned. Its roar shattered the silence of space, so loud it seemed to shake the stars themselves. Its fire did not come in streams or bursts but in a wave, an endless ocean of flame that drowned the Zereth fleet. Ships tried to flee but were caught in the tide, their hulls melting, their weapons dying. Thousands of them vanished in seconds, swallowed by a fire older than the galaxy. The Zereth spears fired again and again, but the dragon no longer slowed. It endured every strike, its wounds burning brighter with every hit, until even its blood became fire. It became more than a beast. It became a star. The humans wept as they watched, for they knew this was the end. The dragon was giving its last roar, its last breath, its last fire. It was not fighting to live. It was fighting to finish. When the flames finally died, silence returned. The Zereth fleet was gone, nothing but drifting ash and shattered metal. The void was clear, the threat ended. But the dragon was gone too. Where it had once stood, only light remained, slowly fading into the darkness. The humans watched in silence, their hearts heavy with loss, yet filled with awe. The beast they had awoken had saved them, not because they commanded it, not because they deserved it, but because it had chosen to fight one last time. Across the galaxy, no one laughed at humanity anymore. They spoke of Earth with respect and fear, for Earth had been the cradle of a guardian. And though the dragon had vanished, its roar still echoed in the stars. Some believed it had died. Some believed it had become part of the fire of the universe, watching forever. But the humans whispered another story, one they would pass to their children. The dragon sleeps, they said. It will rise again when the shadows return. And so the legend lived on, not just in myths but in truth. For the galaxy had seen fire in the void, and it would never forget the last roar.